All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Hildinger, and I am a software consultant here with DWD Technology Group, and I'm going to be presenting a two-part sequence this afternoon with regards to Sage BusinessWorks year-end processing and things to consider, and we'll go through some information and we'll have some time available for questions, and I just hope that you can find this informative and maybe give you some things to consider as we are closing in on the end of this year. If anyone is having connection issues, you are welcome to call Shannon Barnhart at area code 260-399-8665. And during the course of the afternoon here, there is a questions box in your list of goodies available for your access to the webinar today. And you may simply type your question into the chat box there. I appreciate that because we actually record all of this, not only audio, but we also get a printout of the questions that have been asked. And it gives me an opportunity to make sure that all the questions get answered. If I can't answer something, then I know how to follow up and with whom I need to follow up. Additionally, there is an option there to raise your hand. I do see somebody's hand raised already. I'm going to ask everybody I'm going to put that one hand down, and then I'm going to go ahead and ask everybody, raise your hands. All right, that looks pretty good. That is also a way that you can reach out to me. Since I'm going to keep everybody muted, we've got a reasonable number of people in here, and I just kind of want to avoid excessive noise if possible. I actually just had to put my dog outside because she was being too ornery, and I couldn't have that on the presentation today. At the end of the session, each half of the session today, we'll go ahead and open up lines. If you have specific questions that you would like to ask in person, we'll go ahead and go for that. If any of you needs CPE credit, and just so you don't forget, because I have to get mine in yet this year, this is the end of a 3-year reporting cycle. You may also email Shannon Barnhart at sbarnhart@dwdtechgroup.com, and this is only for CPAs. If you are not a CPA and you don't have to track the CPE credit, then there's no need to request this letter. For today, obviously we've just done the little welcome bit. I'm going to mention a little bit about DWD, and then we're going to get into what I consider the core accounting functionality. That would be the general ledger, AR, AP, maybe talk a little bit about inventory. And that's what we're going to talk about here, the first part this afternoon. And then we'll take a break. And after that break, anybody who's interested in discussing payroll and how we should deal with things for year-end for payroll, that's what the second half of today's presentation will be about. So DWD Technology Group, we have been a division of a full-service accounting firm. The full-service accounting firm originally established in 1939. Our technology division was established in 1990. We have 3 physical office locations in the state of Indiana. Our primary office is in Fort Wayne. We have a full accounting office in Marion, Indiana, and we have another technology office in Indianapolis. And of a staff of about 60-some people in our firm, there are about 25 of us that are in the technology group. And we deal with software and business consulting and manufacturing and distribution. We have 2 CPAs, I'm sorry, forgive me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 CPAs in our technology group that can provide assistance, as well as a number of other folks with other varied computery related backgrounds. Some of the solutions that we do in addition to BusinessWorks, we do Sage 100, used to be called Mass 90 for those of you that may have been around a little while. We are working with a product called Sage Intact, and that is kind of an up-and-comer for Sage software as a whole. We also work with Sage 50, MIP Fund Accounting for our not-for-profit type of entities. We can also help with fixed assets, HRMS, which is Human Resource Management Software, I believe is what that acronym is, and Sage CRM, which is a customer relationship management software. So you can see we do a lot of work with Sage software. They've been a good chunk of how we've existed over the years. Software services, we do help our clients with training and support and setting up software, help with upgrades, help with custom report writing and data imports and file maintenance and integrating with other systems. Our IT side of the house, we have a number of gentlemen that are Microsoft certified network engineers, and they can help with things like our networking and computer maintenance and manage network services and things like that. But we also can, in addition with our other software services, do things like our business intelligence and customize Power BI and alerts and various things like that. So that is a fair chunk of who we are. Just a little brief note of who I am. Sadly, I'm not recognizing a huge number of the names in the list, so I don't believe I've had the pleasure of working with you. As I mentioned, my name is Mary Hildinger, and I am a CPA, which one of my coworkers jokes as being a recovering accountant. I actually started out in a technological background a number of years ago and decided I liked playing with computers and I thought it would be fun to play with computer software. So I followed the course of getting my CPA in addition to getting much more familiar with various accounting packages. I've been with DWD for just a little more than 24 years now, and I've been working with the BusinessWorks product for probably about 22 of those years. So I've been around for a couple of days, and if I can't get you an answer, I can find somebody who can. So first topic of today that I would like to discuss is basically dealing with our company and setting up, what kind of history can we hold on to. Each module has the capability of being defined with some amount of history that can be maintained for that particular module. The example here I have on the screen is looking at our general ledger. And we can see that journal detail and summary history are both set up for 2 years. And I'll explain what the importance of that is in just a little bit. But we have the ability to go up to as much as 9 years of history. And just as a side, I'm going to go ahead and pop into our Sage software here. And if I look at my display status, which is what you're seeing on your handout material. This particular company, as I mentioned, you can keep the journal details and the summary histories for 2 years. But if I would like to change that, I can go into my maintain GL parameters or a similar maintain module functionality. And I have the ability to reach up to 9 years of history. So I can keep details for that length of time. There's some other settings that we have here in the GL parameters that are also quite useful. What that will do for us is give us an ability to be able to do maybe a little bit more detailed look back. If we are working in our live company and we need to go question some information, then we can use however much history is made available to us and be able to take hold of that information and do our research. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes that's too much. We certainly have to consider the activity that's going on in your software as far as the volume. How many transactions are you processing regularly? If you set your retention too high, basically what will end up happening is that things will slow down a little bit when you try to do reporting or try to do lookups. But if you don't set it long enough, obviously, then if you need to go find something, it's not going to be there in a form that might be useful. So when we set up our years of history to retain, basically what happens is that as we do our month-end closes and we move our calendars forward in our various modules, then as we surpass that particular length of time to hold on to that history, then the specific details of that information will not be accessible, but we still will have the culmination of all of those transactions. The net result of those particular transactions will still be within our data, but not in any sort of usable format. So if I've closed my general ledger and I've passed my particular amount of history, I don't lose those journal entries. It's just that everything gets summarized into a beginning balance for that period. So I can't really drill down into that. I can't do any reporting on it, but that baseline number is still there. As we go through our history, we might find that we can or cannot delete various things. And what I mean by that is if we go into our maintain chart of accounts or our maintain vendors or maintain customers, we always have that little trash can that is hanging out there as far as an account and whether or not that we have the ability to delete that. So if I've got some accounts out here for which the trash can is not illuminated, that basically tells us that I can't delete this account because there is activity associated with this account that is still within that time frame of the number of years or number of months to retain that history. But if I go cruising along and I look around and I can see, oh, okay, well, I have my trash cans available, then that means I can simply just click on that and BusinessWorks will let me delete that particular thing. So again, customers and vendors, if you surpass the amount of history and there has been no activity with any of those entities, then it's safe to go ahead and remove them if you no longer need them. One of the things that I'm really big on is making a backup at the end of your, not only your fiscal year, but if you're doing payroll, I would also recommend making a backup at the end of the payroll year. Part of the reason for that, again, is just having the accessibility to that information. So before we do our year-end closings, I might recommend that we make a copy of the company and we name it something such that we will not overwrite it. We can even go into the user maintenance and actually try to change the security settings on there so that we don't let anybody get in and transact on that particular company. And there are a couple of ways that we can make that copy occur. The traditional way is to simply do a backup, walk through the backup wizard, and then do a restore and tell it to restore it to a new company name. There's another way that we can do a copy of the company, and it's a little bit quicker, even though it is still doing the same backup and restore functionality. But within our maintain companies, under our utilities menu, we can basically locate the company that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and use my sample company here. Dang it, if I could click. I cannot click today. There we go. So my sample company, and if you're on a relatively new enough version, and when I say that, I mean anywhere from about 2014, 2015 forward, if not even maybe a touch further back, you should have a copy button here. Looks like two pieces of paper sort of overlapping. And when I click on that, it effectively will ask me, what do you want this new company to be called? And this particular name cannot be the name of any other existing company that is defined in your company listings. So it also has to follow all the other rules of naming companies, which means no funky characters, no spaces, anything like that. Excuse me. And you can choose whether or not you want to copy the user security from the original company into the new company. And of course, as we do that, it's going to simply go through, it's going to make our backup, and then it will turn around and it will automatically restore. As you can see, I'm on the restore process now. And when I go to look at my company listings, I will see that I have my sample 2020 and I have my sample, which is my original company file. Part of the reason I like that backup, again, is just to reiterate, as we close modules, that history starts to collapse and it's no longer recoverable for any kind of means of inquiry. Some other settings, just kind of some general things to make you aware of in case you were not. You've got your utilities menu at the top of your BusinessWorks launcher, and that utilities menu is the main utilities menu for the software as a whole. So we might have module utilities. Typically that's where we find some of the specific setup for each individual module. We also find our data rebuilds in there, or if we need to create new data for a particular module. But these system settings here, how you might want your telephone format and whether or not you want to show the date and or the time. One of the big ones is your prior month posting. And you can see there are 3 choices of setting. You have your, yes, I want to allow any prior month posting into a period up to as much history as is being held for that particular module. No, I do not want to allow any prior month posting, or I want a hybrid of that, which is to post back into the current fiscal year only. And then we've got some other settings as far as auto insert the city and the state and uppercase it and things like that. And we've got different informational notifications that we can set for the system as a whole, in addition to those notifications that can be controlled on a user level as well. So when you've got some issues, especially when it comes to your bank reconciliation not tying out with your general ledger, if you've set so that you cannot do prior month postings, then you would maybe run into some issues being able to make any corrections that might be necessary to get things tied out. And especially because when we do our post deposits to the bank, it actually picks up whatever we choose regardless of when we originally received those. So if we've got a month over crossing where I did some cash receipts right at the end of November and I did a couple cash receipts the 1st of December and I lump those into a bank deposit, that's when I'm going to start running into some timing issues and my bank and my GL will not tie out together. Okay, anybody have any questions so far? And I do appreciate the one comment that I got from one of the gentlemen. Thank you. Yes, 22 years. I'm pretty excited. I just can't tell you how blessed I am to work with the people with whom I work. They are amazing. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about what versions are supported. Sage as a whole has adopted a philosophy that it is starting to support really only the current version and maybe 1 or 2 prior versions. BusinessWorks is one that it is current version and prior version only. So as BusinessWorks is now 2021 is the most recent version that's available. The supported versions are 21 and 20. Technically, if you are running 2019 or older, It is not going to be supported by Sage. You might try to reach out to Sage to get some assistance, and they may very well tell you, we are sorry, we can't help you because you are not on a current version. I won't necessarily tell you that. I might only tell you that if the issues are, I'm not able to resolve those issues and I have to try to reach out for help. I may not get help from Sage either in that regard. So if you're keeping current with your maintenance plan, you will always have the accessibility to your BusinessWorks software upgrades. It's a fairly easy upgrade to make happen. If you need assistance with that, I'd be happy to help you with it. But I would encourage you, as you can, keep your software up to date. And that kind of segues me here to this next screen. You know, why do I need to upgrade? You know, I don't need anything new. You know, and one thing I've absolutely loved about BusinessWorks over the years is that it's been a very, very stable program. There's very rarely anything so substantial that it is really breaking on anybody. Even though it is a stable software, part of it is because Sage is only supporting these 2 versions at a time. If something really disastrous happens, you know, I can't fix everything. And like I said, if I can't fix it, I'll try to find somebody who can. And if they won't do it because of their rules, then we basically have to get you upgraded in some fashion. And we might even lose where we are with our data, because if we try to upgrade corrupted data, who knows what could really happen. So, you know, I would encourage you, it's an easy thing to do, keep the software upgraded, and that way we don't run into any issues down the road if something inopportune happens with your organization. As I mentioned, you know, some things, you know, bells and whistles, not, you know, I don't necessarily need those. That's not all what upgrades are about with BusinessWorks. It's, you know, fixing issues that maybe have propagated or, you know, we just haven't had a chance to deal with it previously. And heaven knows, you know, Microsoft, if a new operating system comes out and BusinessWorks is not technically supported on that, we can't guarantee you that it'll work. Experience has shown that most of the time that has worked, you know, especially when we've been upgrading between Windows 7 and Windows 10. I've got a few people that still have those obsoleted Windows 7 operating systems, and we've been getting them put on newer versions of BusinessWorks. But if it works today, that doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. So we just want to take all of the variables out of the situation and go from there. And if you need tax tables, if you're running payroll, you know, you absolutely have to stay fairly current, or else you will not get the service pack that will contain all of the updated tax table information. So we've kind of chit-chatted a little bit about some of the overall capability features. We've talked a little bit about why it's important to upgrade. Let's go ahead and focus now. What's going on here? It's year end. What do I need to do? Why do I need to do it? How do I do it? So monthly as we go along, and those of you obviously who are used to working with AP and AR and payroll, you will find that you have to keep modules closed regularly, because we have limitations as to how far forward and how far back we can transact with those modules. And GL is a little more forgiving. Payroll is not. Payroll is, it has to be closed every month. So, you know, how do we get the company closed? Or especially if you're fairly new to the BusinessWorks world, why do we do it? How do we do it? So at the top of BusinessWorks, we have the utilities menu here. And again, this is the systemic utilities, not module specific. And one of those utilities is the function called company close. And the company close will offer to us all of the modules and the ability to potentially close them effectively all at once. Now, one of the first questions that we get before we actually can see the company close screen is a question about backing up your data. And too many times we ignore this particular prompt, and the next thing we know, the power drops out on us. In fact, I just had that happen with a client this morning using another Sage product. We were restoring a backup, and right in the middle of the backup, they lost power. So I can hear all your gasps and your wide eyes, and your I can see your mouths pop open. Yeah, it happens, and it happens far too regularly, probably. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we constantly keep good backups of our data. Yes, you may be set up on a system where you get backups from your server. That's okay. I will caution you, just because you think you're getting backups made to your server, that doesn't always mean that's the case. You need to work with your IT people and ensure that those backups are functioning regularly. We've just had a couple of rash instances of malware and that ransomware stuff, that nasty stuff where they take over your computer and they make you pay for it. Normally we can chuckle and say, haha, we have a good backup, so we're just going to replace our server and put that good backup on. Go away, nasty ransomware people. We've had a few people that said, yes, I've got backups, that they're wonderful, and they go to look and their backup is over a year old. So we now have the scramble. Do we pay the people the ransom? Do we scramble to try to figure out how to get ourselves set up? Whatever. Again, just caution you, backup, 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 please. And if I can't say it enough, backup, please. So you get the prompt here to back up your company files. Go ahead and click on the backup button. What that will do is it will close the function to, it'll pop open the backup wizard. And again, it's super, super, super simple. So we just go ahead, we go through, we pick the company that we want to back up. And from there, we get prompted, where do we want to put this backup? And a lot of us will try to store these backups on our servers. And our servers have these nifty little drive letters. So I might have my Tech Group T drive here, and I go ahead and I say I want to put that backup on there. Well, there is a little bit of a struggle, if you will, that sometimes if we are going to a mapped drive and we find out that those things are just taking for bloody ever to make that backup, what we really need to do is we need to direct our backups to a local drive at the computer from which the backup is being made, and then copy it out to your network. If it is so sluggish, I've had, even our office, when we use BusinessWorks for our internal accounting software, it was taking a half an hour for a backup to run that should only take about 3 minutes. We had to call Sage and say, hey, can you go into the guts of the data and fix this, because this is something I can't fix, and redirect it so that it only goes to a local drive. And then our process happened a lot more quickly. So we go ahead and make that backup. I'm not going to do it here for sake of time. And once we return from that, we get a listing of our modules. And you will notice some of these have fiscal year end definitions. We see the month that is currently open. And we see some notes here, you know, general ledger, the audit trail hasn't been printed, AR, the statements haven't been printed. Oh, you know what, June, that's an end of a payroll quarter. And then we get the opportunity to pick and choose the modules that we want to close. Some words of caution. If you're going to go this route and do it all, just go ahead and do everything. You cannot opt to choose modules if they are not in the same base month. So if for some reason my accounts payable was already in July, then I could not pick it as part of a company close to close June. So all of these months will have to be identical in order for us to be able to pick them and move forward. Otherwise, you will have to go through and do closures module by module. Some other things that we can see about our company close, we'll get some warnings, you know, especially if we're in our year end. Hey, you haven't printed your 1099 forms yet or anything like that. Again, another good reason to make that uneditable backup copy as you're moving forward. Maybe you want to be able to go ahead and print you're not ready to print your W-2s or your 1099s, but you've got to process payroll in January. Obviously, we'll talk about that more a little bit later this afternoon, but excuse me, that is why you want to sometimes make that extra backup. I'm not really going to spend a whole lot on the tax table updates here because this is really more applicable to the payroll side of life, but again, service packs will be out and they are usually popping out right about now for year end. You might want to take note of what version you currently are on and then go determine whether you're on the current service pack for your version. And if you're already on a particular version, go ahead and keep up with those service packs because, again, little things behind the scenes might be getting fixed that you may or may not be aware of. If you opt to close modules individually, here is the order that we should do the module closings. Start with payroll, then do your accounts payable / cash management. And then note AR, order entry, and inventory control. Those must all close together. Excuse me. And they must be done in that order. So if you, by some chance, try to do, I'm sorry, forgive me, the order is incorrect here. I need to fix that. But AR first, and then inventory, and then order entry. So again, AR first, inventory control second, and then order entry. And all three of those always have to be in the same period. It is okay if your payables is a month ahead or behind. Your payroll has to be in whatever the current live month. Job cost typically should be in the current month, and your general ledger, you have a little bit of flexibility. You might be able to leave that open for a few extra months before you should consider closing. In accounts payable, okay, some things to think about. Things that we should do. We should most certainly reconcile your bank accounts, savings accounts, checking accounts. Make sure as you can get all of your invoices that are applicable to the month of December entered. And we all know how snail mail goes. We certainly might be getting a bill from one of our suppliers and it's the first week or maybe early into the second week of January. And we really, really, really would like to start entering January transactions. It is recommended that in order to keep your AP aging and your general ledger kind of in the best shape possible, make sure you get all of your month-end invoices entered before you close into the next month and start entering that month's transactions. So that's really, just kind of an FYI, hopefully a little helpful hint. Sometimes we run into situations where the general ledger doesn't jive with our aging reports. Ideally, we would really like that always to stay the same. And if they don't, we need to figure out why and what we need to do about that. Or maybe we just have to wait it out because it's a timing issue. So again, just some things to keep in mind, but realize our actions will dictate how results may occur. As far as year end, again, you want to get all your 1099s processed. unless, of course, you've made that historical copy and you're running all your payroll forms and your 1099 forms from there. So those are some things that we want to have you keep your eyes on with regard to payables. And what happens as a result of doing the AP year-end processing? So, you know, month by month we go through and all things are happy. We've got some options in here as far as keeping our history open and what we can set as far as the amount of data that we can drill into the past, and those things as we have those set up, as we close that month, that calendar basically rolls us forward, and a new set of, you know, X number of months or X number of days becomes effective. Printing 1099s, I'm going to go back to that because, again, this is coming. And note that this year, if you're not already aware of it, the government has reinstituted a Form 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation, and it takes the place of the previous 1099 miscellaneous box 7 reporting. So you will want to make sure that your 1099 report capabilities are updated. That is your Form 1099 reporting. For those of you who've used this before, it uses a tool called Atrix, and that's just the back-end computer program that facilitates all of the governmental compliance. You must be on an active maintenance or support plan in order to get the downloads from Atrix, because that is a separate download from your BusinessWorks service packs, okay? The federal copy will be printed on the red pre-printed forms. So those are those two-part forms that we might all be very familiar with. Your recipient copy may be printed on blank 4-part perforated forms. So what I want to point out here is that the federal copy will not draw the lines and the box numbers and the descriptions of the boxes. It is expecting a pre-printed template, and per the government, it must be the red pre-printed template. However, your recipient copies, they will print all the grid lines, they will print all of the box numbers and the descriptions of the boxes and things like that. So you definitely want to be aware. If you've already ordered your forms and everything is 2-part pre-printed, have no fear. We can work around it. I found this trick a few years ago, and it has served well over the past years, where we can just continuously reprint the federal copy and just stick in the different paper that we need for each version of the form. The transmittal summary, that infamous 1096, that is also a red pre-printed form, and you must have that form available. It will not print the grid lines or any of that good stuff. Accounts receivable. Again, a very, very similar story as to accounts payable. Basically, it is desired for you to go ahead and have all of your current month's activity posted, even if it means going into the next period, whether it be the next month or the next year. Make sure you have your cash receipts entered. Make sure you have all your invoicing done, whether the invoicing is coming from AR or order entry. When you're done doing your invoicing for the month, then you want to make sure that you apply the finance charges. Print your customer statements. For those of you who've tried to print the statements in the past and you always have this nasty, I have 6,000 different statements and they don't have the right information on there, there is a trick to that too. I can help you with that, or I can point you to the resources on the BusinessWorks website that can get you that information. You want to make sure before you post into your future period. So again, it's the first part of January of 2021. Make sure that all of your December information is good. Go ahead and print your aging report in order to be able to properly reconcile to your balance sheet. And similar to AP year-end processing, we've got some time that after we have done those closes, and let me pull that actually up just to kind of show you a little bit better here in our status. Basically, for the number of months that we keep the history, again, if we set that up to the maximum, then as soon as we achieve that maximum and go into the next month, then we start to collapse the details of those invoices. Finally, I'm going to wrap up this afternoon's first part here with regards to inventory. Just a real quick show of hands. How many of you are using inventory with your BusinessWorks? So a few of you, okay. Short story to this is that before you start moving forward into the next period, whether you do it as each month or whether you do it as each year, excuse me, as far as when you do this following activity, it's your physical count. And we all know that that's a nightmare in and of itself, because we pretty much have to stop the world in order to get this done. Because when we lock our inventory, we cannot transact anywhere else in the system with regards to any kind of inventory. So when we're doing our physical count, we're going to freeze or lock that inventory. We'll perform the count. So we'll enter in all of our physical counts to correct those quantities, and then we'll be able to run the stock status report so that we can tie out to our balance sheet. So again, as we go in here to our transactions and we go to our physical inventory, we've got our lock unlock function. And again, once we lock, then we are not going to be able to transact anything for the time until we enter our counts and unlock it. We get our message here, do you want to lock the physical inventory? I'd say yes. And then I can go in, I can get my count worksheets. I can print them in a variety of ways, whether or not I want to print a range of parts or product lines or bin locations or warehouses. You know, however I need to segregate that to give it to the people to go out and enter those counts. Then I get in and I will actually enter the updates. And we get a question here. How am I entering my count? So on my worksheet, and I should probably show that to you here first. Let's take a quick look at the worksheet. And if I go ahead and preview that, I'm going to get information that says how much the software thinks I have. So I have a quantity of 6, I might have a quantity of 30, you know, however many I have. If I've got lot numbers or just, you know, first in, first out, I might just have these counts. If I've got the actual serial numbers, then I can confirm that those are the serial numbers that I have in stock. And with the knowledge of what the software thinks its current count is, when I go to enter that count, am I going to enter my data as a relative figure? So if I have 6 on hand and my counter counts 8, am I going to enter 2? Or am I going to enter 8? So you will want to watch for this setting because it will absolutely have an impact on what your ending results are for your inventory. And once you've entered all of those things, then you get the part number. I'm working currently in a specific warehouse. Go ahead and plug these all in. And after that, we can run our variance to show what things have changed. And we can confirm, obviously, since my report is empty, I did not have any variances from what the system thought we had versus what we defined for the count. And after I am done with that, I will go ahead and unlock my inventory. So it is an all or nothing.
Hey, Mary.
All right. Yes.
I think we might have a question. Either Suzanne, she has her hand raised. I'm not sure if she has a question or if that's still raised from when you asked people about inventory.
I think that was a leftover from
Yep.
inventory, I presume. And
yeah,
again, feel free to type your questions into the questions box. I am keeping a split eye on that, so, and Sherry's also helping watch. Some of you may have spoken with Sherry, or if any of you have made inquiries at our DWD website, and I apologize, I did not introduce her earlier. Sherry is our Director of Marketing for our technology group, and she will sometimes hang out at the chat screen for our website. When you get into our resources area and start poking around, you might see that nifty little chat box come up, and depending on whose picture, you might be chatting with Sherry or one of our other staff who man that for us. So Sherry, thank you for your assistance today. I want to make sure I let people know that you're here, and I appreciate everything that you do for us. All right, last module of the afternoon here. As far as the general ledger, any of your other modules that you have live, i.e. not still in setup mode, you want to make sure that all of those other modules have been closed first. And as a general rule, pardon the pun, general ledger will be the last module that you close in your company. And again, whether you do it on a monthly basis or maybe you do it every few months, that is to be determined, depending on whether or not you permit prior period postings is another thing to consider, how frequently you close that GL. But I do strongly recommend that after you have your year completed, your tax return has been done, your financial statements have been published, all of your adjustments have been entered, I would strongly, strongly, strongly suggest that you close that general ledger into the current year. You don't necessarily have to be right on top of the current period, but definitely get it into January of that particular new year. And some things that happen, basically net income or net loss closes into your retained earnings account, and your P&L accounts zero out to start the new year. And then again, as far as how much history for your transaction history and your summary history, various balances will be recalculated for different files, so we can keep that information moving forward. All right, we are about wrapped here for the first session this afternoon. I would absolutely love to open the floor for any questions. Realize I am going to discuss payroll in a little bit more detail after the break. If any of you is not interested in sticking around for payroll, I want to thank you so very kindly for showing up here this afternoon and joining us. I hope that you found some information here useful. And if you have any questions, at the end of your presentation material is some contact information for me. You are more than welcome to reach out and I will be happy to assist in any way that I can. Anybody have any specific questions? Oh, there is a phenomenal question that has just come across the line. One of our guests here today, I have 9 separate companies in Sage. Is there any way to close them all at once? And unfortunately, I have to tell you the answer is no. The closest that we can get you is to do a company close for each company individually. I know. I just got a sad face from this guest. So, yeah, I'm sorry. But that I work with a number of different software packages, accounting software packages, and not a one of them has that capability to do multi-company closes. So you are not alone, my friend. Okay, so I got another question that's come through, and a way to run reports all at once. With regard to that, now, if you're talking about running company reports all at once, that one I will say is a no. But if I am running reports within a company, I don't know if you are familiar with the report groups. And report groups is a way that we can set up different reports from different modules and kick them off such that they actually can run together. So it is possible to set up a group ID, get all the reports that you want, and then, like the company close, kick off your report grouping And what I can do here is basically add, I'm going to go ahead and do a real quick little demo here since that's such a phenomenal question. And I can look module by module, whether I want GL reports or payable reports or receivable reports or, you know, whatever I want to look at. So I might want my standard balance sheet. Oh, report setup required. Thank you very kindly. And of course, it takes us to the actual report settings that we would normally get when we kick these off. So I would go ahead and pick whether I want to run it for the current month or maybe a prior month, and realize that if I pick one of these relative settings, then when July becomes the current month, then that's the report that would run. When August is your current month. So that is dependent upon what your period close is. And yes, to answer your question, you still have to run the report groups for each company individually. Now, as a side thought, and I know that this particular product gets used elsewhere, but there are a couple of things that we could consider, one of which is Microsoft Power BI, and that is a tool that basically allows you to connect to different data sources where you can do custom inquiries, custom reporting, and talk directly to your BusinessWorks data. So in that fashion, that might be a possibility to get you all 9 companies' information at one particular time. And if you would like to talk with us about that, I can spell Power BI. I've got some other guys that are way more proficient. But that is something that is possible. To kind of give you to kind of finish out where I am here with this particular rabbit hole I'm going down, I can go ahead and do my accounts payable, aging report, Again, I can identify my settings for that. And so I've got that one. I can, continue to build my list, and you can see how I am reaching into different modules to get this. Yeah. And so on. So when I go to print my account groups, I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I can have multiple groupings, so that's not an issue. I can just go right on into my reports. I can go into my report groups, and I will get greeted with whatever the current group ID is, or I can go looking for any of my other groups. And if I have those set up, oh, I have to hit my lookup. There we go. Sorry. Then I would have my group IDs listed for me. I could pick whichever group I wanted, and then I could tell it to print or preview that group. I could even turn individual reports on or off and save that potentially if I want that to be the new setting. I can delete it. I can do lots of different stuff with it. So just a little side note there on the report groups. Okay, I'm going to kind of reiterate some questions about why we may or may not be able to see information back prior to a certain number of months or years. And the question that has come in is, I'm only able to go back to 2018 when running particular reports. And we've had the software for a lot longer prior to this. How can I get access to those older years? I'm going to have you go into your software, and we really need to check, what is the actual number of years or maybe number of months setting. And if you are stuck here on the 2 years, and I'm going to tell you this is a default for when a company gets started. So if nobody's ever changed to this, then you are limited to the prior years. And even if you set this back to a higher number, it will not retroactively go back and make those changes. It won't recall any of that stuff. You would have to refer to actual historical companies if you have those available. Got another great question that's just come in. Can I change the parameters on the AR statements to print in alphabetical order by customer name versus customer ID? To be very honest, I don't remember. Let me see if I can find anything about that. It has been a long time since I have played with these, so forgive me while I go hunting. Nothing in the settings. Let's go see what happens when we go to print statements. And it does not appear that we have any sorting capabilities available at this point. What I will recommend to you is that you can always reach out to Sage and ask them to update the software to provide for that particular request. And if they get enough people who make the same request for the same features, then they would be more apt to include that in a future version. Note also, I am running BusinessWorks 2020. I thought I had 2021, but apparently I did not get my software upgraded early enough. So there are some new things that are available in 2021. Unfortunately, I don't have that list off the top of my head, but that can be something that we can certainly request from Sage, and they're pretty good about listening to the customer because they want to make sure that your software is useful for you. And what I'm going to do is I am keeping notes on these questions that you all have typed in. I appreciate that because I can go back and do a little bit of research and maybe see if I can find out anything more than what I currently know at this time. So, anybody else have any questions here for this first part? Awesome. Well, hey, I really, really, really appreciate you all taking your time out here this afternoon. I am going to discuss payroll here in a few minutes. If you are sticking around, I'm going to take about a 5-ish minute break. We'll reconvene at 10 after 2. My clock currently says 2:02, so about 8 minutes. If you are not sticking around, again, thank you for showing up here this afternoon. I hope that it was an informative session for you. And again, check through your materials. You've got contact information for me. I think, let me go see if I can get to the end of that. Oh, nope, there it is. Right here. There we go. That is how you can contact me. You get to see my gorgeous mug. But anyway, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to wish you all a very blessed holiday season if I don't get a chance to speak with you before. All right, welcome back. Hope you were able to get some coffee or a pop or get your legs stretched or what have you. We're going to finish out this afternoon's session talking about more year-end types of activities, but most specifically for the payroll module. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and keep going. I think you all have been on the whole time, so hopefully nobody's having any connection issues. Just as a reminder, please use your questions chat box to enter questions. A, I can see them, and B, I can have a record of them. So if I can't finish answering them, I will absolutely research them and get back with you on that. And as a reminder, if anybody needs CPE credit, make sure you reach out to Shannon at sbarnhart@dwdtechgroup.com. Just note CPE credit in the subject line of the message, and we'll get letters sent out to you probably yet this week. And for the afternoon agenda here, since most of you were here for the first part, I'm not necessarily going to reiterate who DWD is. You were able to catch that a little bit earlier. I am going to remind you about some of the important things about the versions, but I'm going to go through that part of it fairly quickly and jump towards payroll. And I do have a question here that I want to get to before I move forward. The question has to do with creating a new company and rename it and then close all the modules to start processing. So let me read this question specifically. Are you saying that we should create a new company on 12/31 and rename it to company, 2020 or 2021 or whatever, and then close all the modules in the live company and start processing, and then use the old company to complete things like the W-2s and 1099s, but not close out that company? That is absolutely an option that you may do. One thing that we find with Atrix is its ability to reach back into historical periods, but I find that it is much cleaner to have that historical copy and use that for processing your year-end forms. Again, it is a choice that is completely up to you, and even if you don't process your forms in the historical company, I do encourage you to make that backup, just because it's another safety net. We can't have too many backups, especially with all of the rowdiness that some folks are trying to pull off with technology today. But that is, yeah, that's an absolutely wonderful question as well. Thank you. So again, just as a reminder, current versions 2021 and 2020 are the software versions that are supported by BusinessWorks. And those are the ones for which product updates, service packs are made available. Service updates are not made available for any of the obsoleted versions. And if you are active on your client care plan, don't hesitate to upgrade your software. It doesn't take all that long. As long as we don't have anything anomalous happen, that usually can happen in a couple hours or so. And I can assist with that if you need it, or if you've got IT people who are versant in that, have them do that for you. It's worth it. In payroll, you want to make a copy, again, just as a safety net prior to closing a quarter. You can make your backups as often as you would like, but the quarter one at least gives you the payroll tax form period that you're dealing with. When you get to year end and we do a closing of our payroll, you'll get asked a question as to whether or not you want to keep terminated employees or if you want to go ahead and delete them. So this is a reason, if you make that copy of the company and you don't close it, okay, but in your live company you choose to close payroll and move forward, you get the question about removing the terminated employees. If you say yes to that, you will not be able to run your W-2s with your live company. You would have to use you would have to create your W-2s and other payroll forms in the historical company. So again, it's an option, but it might be predicated on how you choose to answer that question. So it also just gives you the ability to save your data before you move forward to print checks in the next month, or especially at this time of year, the next year. And as I mentioned, Atrix does have the ability to reach back into prior periods, which we didn't have that until however many years ago the Atrix came into being, or the electronic tax, what's that called again? The enhanced tax reporting and e-filing. So if we did not have that functionality available, we had to do all of our forms in an historical company, or we had to do them all before we processed payroll in the new year. Some things that happen during the year-end processing, various summary totals and things like that get reset. Quarter-specific reports only show current activity, and kind of a rule, because of the change of the FICA limit for the Social Security taxable wages, you want to hold off putting in your first tax update for the year until after you get those W-2s done, because the tax rate for the federal is applicable across all of your companies. If you do go ahead and apply the tax rate, you would have to manually reset the limit for the prior tax year, and then remember to set it back when you move forward. And the enhanced tax filing and reporting must be installed on each computer from which those forms are to be run. This is a separate program to BusinessWorks, and if you have never installed it before and you try to access it, you might get a prompt that says, this has not been installed. Do you want to go ahead and install it? But with my version here, I have had that on my computer for a while, so it's just going to keep rolling forward. and you would be able to get the choice of your federal forms or your state forms. Again, depending on from which company you run your payroll forms and reports, the existing form may or may not show up as you expect. And I'll talk about that here a little bit more in a couple of moments. Some of the things that you can print, as I was starting to show you, the federal forms, the 940, the 941, the W-2s. Your W-2s, if you have not been aware of this, you do not need to use the pre-printed forms any longer. The only thing that you would want to consider is 4-part perforated paper. Sometimes it's referred to as 4-up, if you've heard that term before. That can be blank on one side. It would be ideal to have the IRS instructions on the back. You can order it from Sage, or you can order it from anybody who supplies business forms. You can also do e-filing directly through Atrix. You have to register with Atrix that your company is going to be doing the e-filing, so they can get information about your federal ID number and your contact information. There are fees that are charged with the Atrix filing. They vary depending on the form that you're trying to process and for how many employees, but all of that is available. With regard to the state forms, I know in the state of Indiana, they want to have your UC1 or your state unemployment form e-filed, or you have to go through their portal to electronically remit that information. So you have to watch out for that. With regard to e-filing for the W-2s at the state level, again, in Indiana, you need, if you have 25 or more employee returns that are going to be filed. That doesn't mean current employees or active employees. If you have paid 25 or more people during the course of the year, even if it was one person for one check in January, Indiana requires that you e-file your state W-2s. And all of that can happen through the Atrix functionality. The federal law, I believe, is still at $250, if I recall correctly. If you're not in the state of Indiana, please contact your own accountants and find out what your state's specific requirements are. The Atrix updates, you might, as you're doing things during the course of the year, you get the little notifications occasionally that, oh, hey, yeah, verily, we've got to update the software. You will start to see a plethora of these over the next few weeks, especially. I have had instances where I have updated in the morning, and I went back later that afternoon and I got prompted for another update, and you will smack your head going, why? But it's just, you're better served to just go ahead and do it. And again, because this software is installed on each user's computer individually, you might have to update, Mary might be updating it on her computer, and then Ted is trying to get into something. He may get prompted for an update too. So just realize we're going to get a lot of these updates this time of year. So please don't smack the messenger. So when we go in to process our, enhanced tax filing and reporting, one prompt that we may see is something about verifying our account information and making sure that you're on a current business plan. You just go ahead and acknowledge that, and you'll follow through with whatever prompts come to you. You may have to read some sort of document, or at least acknowledge that you have read a particular document to verify before you can continue. It may ask you about your entitlement. Go ahead and make sure that you officially acknowledge those things. Otherwise, you will not be able to continue with updating your forms. So once your account's been validated, here's that screen that prompts you, do you want to do the automatic update? Do you want to download it and install it manually? Do you want to just say, I don't care? Well, if you hit the continued expired, you won't be able to file those with the government because they will be watermarked. And those and the e-filing aspect of it will not allow you to continue. If you've got problems downloading, and I don't see this as much with BusinessWorks as I do with one of my other softwares, but there are some things that you can configure with your Internet Explorer internet options. And I make note that it is your Internet Explorer options because that's the engine that is the interface between BusinessWorks and the web. You might have to change some privacy settings, and these are some things that you might have to add and allow in your privacy tab. If you've got a pretty tight firewall for your organization, you might want to check with your IT people and ask them to allow port 80 and the website http://updates.atrix.com. Those are some things that can get in the way. Like I said, I don't see it as often with BusinessWorks as I do with Sage 100, but it all depends on how your network is configured. I'm going to ask everybody out there who knows their information to access the Sage customer portal. Go ahead and raise your hands for me. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's a pretty low percentage, and I can't say that I am surprised because it can be a little nebulous on that. Sage offers a portal access, and part of that portal access gives you the ability to look at your customer information as it is known by Sage. You can figure out who are considered authorized contacts within your organization. You can confirm the validity of your subscription to your software, whether or not your maintenance is current. It also gives you the access to the knowledge base, product information. The one thing I don't remember is whether or not we can download BusinessWorks without being logged in through the customer portal. I do not believe that you can. I do know that we can get to the knowledge base without being logged into the customer portal. That is something that Sage opened up a couple of years back to give their users more visibility to the knowledge base, and the knowledge base that Sage uses is the same one that they present to you on the portal. So if you've got questions, you can go ahead and do a search out there. If you call me up and you need me to look at something or look for something, that's where I go and I do my search. And then if I can't find it either, I play with the search criteria, or I finally call Sage and say, hey, where is this knowledge base article? So the customer portal is a pretty cool thing. If you don't have your credentials, you can contact Sage. You can either go to this website and then click on the link trouble logging on, or to sign up for your portal account. One of the things that you would need to know would be your customer ID with Sage software. And boy, I kind of ran through that really fast. I know I hit my question spot here, but what I want to do is I want to go ahead and run through some of the reports and kind of share with you what you might expect when you are doing your year-end processing. Do note my sample company is in the year 2010, so I'm going to get screeched at as far as forms and compatibility with what data is available to report versus what forms are available. When we go into our taxes tab here in BusinessWorks, we're going to notice a lot of things. We still have our FICA and FWT deposits and our state deposits and state unemployment and whatnots. But when we get to the middle section here, which looks like all of the report printing, all of this technically just kicks us all into the enhanced tax reporting and e-filing. So in the past, these were all separate things. They really weren't interlinked, but now with the Atrix engine that underlies all this, we have the ability to pick and choose what report we are interested in looking for. And you'll notice that mine currently says 2018. So don't panic. If you open yours up and yours says 2019 and you don't have all of the other reports and forms that you need for 2020, don't panic, because as soon as you pick one of these, and I'll use my 941 here as an example, and I'm just picking random information based on what I know is in my test company, but you'd be picking for 2020 fourth quarter. It'll go out and it will start the process of reviewing the information. Excuse me. And when it gets to its appropriate point, it's going to say, hey, Mary, you need to upgrade your Atrix. And we should get that prompt here momentarily. And as I mentioned, here it is, the automatic, the download, the continue expired. I'm going to go ahead and do the automatic update. And it's going to go out and do its thing and rifle through all of its updates. I'm ecstatic that this is moving as quickly as it is. Sometimes we see that go more slowly. In days gone by, we used to be able to pick and choose what we would update, but anymore, just update it all. That will prevent you from not picking something you should. We go ahead and follow through. We can see all the different jurisdictions for the forms that are available. Another show of hands. How many of you folks are from outside Indiana? I've got a handful of you folks that are not Hoosiers. Okay, cool. So again, for your state forms, it's imperative to be able to get these updates and make sure that your state's forms are as current as possible, in addition to all the federal forms. So the update, as you can tell, is doing both federal and local. So if you're picking a form from the federal side and get the update when you go over to pick from the state side, you technically wouldn't get an update unless you just hit that weird little window where they popped out a new one in the time it took you to update this last one. If that happens, I would be really surprised, but I could see it happening, you know, earlier in the morning versus later in the afternoon. That is absolutely possible. So we'll go ahead and let this guy cruise here for a moment. Just another question while we're waiting on this. How many of you have issued the new W-4 forms to your employees and had them reply? Are you all using that at this point? See some activity here. That's awesome. Cool. Okay. Again, while this thing is cruising along, you'll notice up here in the toolbar, and I choose to use the toolbar view such as this, I can certainly pick and choose and use my specific module look to my toolbar. But we have a chat feature here that will actually connect us to Sage and get you to a first line support tech. So if you are on a current subscription maintenance plan, then you have access to that chat, and they will be more than happy to talk with you and try to help you with your issue, provided you have cases available. They can confirm whether you have sufficient cases available or whether or not you need to acquire cases. But that's been around for a few versions. Some other things that have been there under the help menu, you've got the live chat, which is equivalent to this little dialog bubble here. Support and service on the web. If you ever need to work with a BusinessWorks technician and they say, hey, I want to connect to your computer, this will take you to their site that they will give you a code and facilitate the connection with your computer. If you want to download your updates, and if you want to submit enhancements, as we talked about a little bit earlier, if you want to have them do the sorting and ordering of the AR statements by something other than the default, then yes, go ahead and plug that suggestion in. Or if you've got other things that you'd like to see the software do, don't hesitate. They will more than happily take your suggestions and try to work with them. I did get another question that came in while I'm waiting here. Am I correct that the new W-4 form is only required for new employees? Existing employees have an option to fill it out. That is correct. That's the ruling as we understand it right now. Although it doesn't necessarily hurt to have your employees refresh that periodically, whether you choose to do it now or maybe next year or a couple of years from now. Maybe their circumstances have changed and they just completely forgot that what they had for their options. It would be recommended that you have them check on that periodically. Okay, we have completed the update, so we go ahead and close. And then Atrix, we're talking to that now, and it's reading our BusinessWorks data. And it will go out, excuse me, pardon me. It will go out and fill out the information in our forms. And we start walking through, I like to call it a lizard, but it is a wizard. And the first thing that it confirms is your company ID number. So this has to be your valid company ID number, otherwise it will bark at you. Do you use the same federal ID number for multiple payroll data files? So the one person here today who's been asking about the multiple companies, if those are all the same federal ID number and you need to consolidate your payroll reporting, then we have an ability to pull them all together into one transmission. If you've not done that before, if you've got questions, I'm happy to walk you through how that works. Typically, most of us will just say, hey, no, I use a single payroll file. It confirms your company name, address, contact information, all those good things. You've got an opportunity to correct this, as this is what will go on the forms. And whether or not you're a third-party payee, because there might be some places where you can put in a particular PIN number or what have you. Most of us will say I'm filing for my own. And then, of course, we would have various jurisdictions that we might get prompted to put in various account numbers. Depending on the form, you might think, oh, I don't need this, but because this does propagate across all of Atrix, all of the different forms, if you go ahead and fill it out here, then you don't have to mess with filling it out later, and it really won't let you continue if you don't have appropriate information entered in. And a lot of times if I'm just playing or testing, I just throw a number in so that it will let me continue. And since I'm not sure what the California rules are on that, I don't worry about what that number is, but it gives me the format that I need. So we've got Indiana, and I am in Allen County in Indiana, and I'll just leave that as is. Yeah, So fine, do that. Oak. There we go. Now it's happy. Now I pulled up a 941, so we're all thinking, why do I need those numbers? Again, it's just to allow you to continue moving through the wizard. And we get our form here, and we'll get some various prompts. I like to call them, pumping you for buying additional services, and then the reminder that you need to fill in the red items, whether or not on this type of form, whether you were a monthly or a semi-weekly depositor. If you choose the semi-weekly, then you have to complete your Schedule B. For those of you who have been doing this for a while, you realize this used to be just 3 pages, now it's 4. That interim page has to do with some of the emergency medical leave pay. And so anywhere that it needs something filled out to allow you to continue, like anything that's red, it won't let you move forward until you get that stuff filled out. So as long as it's not red, we go ahead and we walk through. It'll ask you to confirm what you've done. So you have the ability to go back and double check it, or you agree and it will allow you to move to the next step. So as we go through here, we can see we were previously in the review edit function. Now we are in the what they call my copy, which if you print anything at this stage will be watermarked and therefore not submittable. The only way that you can get fileable copies is to be in the either federal copy or the state copy, depending on what form you are working with. And you then get the opportunity to either e-file or to print certain forms. Depending again on the type of form that you select, you might only be able to e-file, or if you print, it will be a watermarked, non-submittable copy of the form. So since I picked the e-file, it got angry at me. But if I picked the print, I want to go back and do my next step over here, go into my print. Then I can choose, to what printer, how many copies of this I would like, and so on. And once I am done, did I complete processing, yes or no? And then it returns me back to my main menu of BusinessWorks, and I can go back into another form and process from there. I was wondering if anybody had any additional questions. I know I've been getting some fabulous questions here so far this afternoon, and I just want to make sure if anybody has anything, feel free to bring it up. Be happy to try to answer this for you. Anything anybody would like me to review, go back over? Everybody awake? There's a comment that just came in, and it has to do with the Affordable Care Act forms. Because the system is not autofilling. I was under the impression, are you on the most current version of BusinessWorks? And if you're not sure what version of BusinessWorks you're running, okay, you are. You can always go to the help and about, and it will tell you the version and then any service pack that might be available. I'm going to take a note, and I'm going to go hunting The question about having to do the ACA forms manually because the system doesn't autofill. Let me see what I can find out, and if you want that information about the ACA forms, I'm going to ask you to just comment in the questions and say, hey, you know, just say ACA in there for me, and then I can get a list of you so I know to whom I need to respond, and I'll find that information out, and I'll try and get that out to you here over the next few days. Awesome. I'm starting to see some responses there. And I just want to go back on a comment. Somebody had to step away for a moment. Existing employees are not required to update their Form W-4 for the 2020 version, but I recommend it. Theoretically you should be having them updated every year, but we all know that that isn't always practical. And I don't like making people do stuff that's not terribly practical unless it's an absolute necessity. But you want to consider maybe having your employees update those forms periodically, because their circumstances might change and they may not remember how their settings were, and they might need to make some changes so that they don't get hammered very hard when they have to file their taxes for a current tax year. Anybody else have any other questions or concerns? Well, again, I want to thank everybody for attending here this afternoon. We are also making this recording available. I did record this. I neglected to tell everybody about it. If you're interested in a link to the recording, simply comment in the questions recording. So if you need information about the ACA question, type in ACA. If you'd like a link to the recording, please just type in recording. I'll have all that list of who you are and which information you need, and we'll make sure that we get that back out to you. If you need CPE, please email Shannon and let her know, and we'll get those letters out to you. If not by the end of this week, then certainly before Christmas. And I want to thank you all so very much for being with us here this afternoon. And again, a very blessed holiday season to you all. Please all stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon.